The Christmas tree lights cast a warm glow across my living room, but I felt nothing but cold when I opened that email. My husband had been dead for 6 months. Yet there it was, a message from Robert's account, sent at exactly 7:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve. "Sarah, if you're reading this, I didn't make it. I knew something was wrong. Check the lake house. Don't trust Emily. The truth is in the blue tackle box. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. Delete this after reading. Robert." My hands trembled so violently I nearly dropped my phone. Around me, my daughter Emily's perfectly planned Christmas dinner party continued, crystal glasses clinking, her husband Marcus telling some story about his latest surgery, their friends laughing at all the right moments. Everything looked normal. Everything felt like a lie. 6 months ago, my world shattered when Robert collapsed in our kitchen. Heart attack, they said. Sudden, unexpected, tragic. At 62, he was gone before the ambulance arrived. Emily had been so strong through it all, handling the funeral arrangements, the legal paperwork, everything. My successful lawyer daughter taking care of her broken mother. Now I stared at words from beyond the grave, and my heart raced with the same panic I felt the day I lost him. I excused myself to the bathroom, my legs barely carrying me up the stairs. In the locked sanctuary of my own bathroom, I read the email again and again. Robert had set this up somehow, programmed it to send if something happened to him. Which meant he knew. He knew he was in danger. Don't trust Emily, my daughter, my only child. The little girl I'd raised, put through law school, celebrated every achievement with. The woman who'd held my hand at her father's funeral and promised we'd get through this together. I looked at myself in the mirror. At 58, I'd aged a decade in 6 months. The retired elementary school teacher who'd spent 40 years shaping young minds now couldn't make sense of her own life. But Robert's message was clear. I had to go to the lake house. The problem was, I'd planned to sell it. Emily had been insistent about that, actually. Too many memories, Mom. Too painful. Let me handle the sale, you don't need that stress. I'd signed the listing papers just last week. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. "Mom? You okay up there? Dessert's ready?" I flushed the toilet for effect and washed my hands with shaking fingers. I had to act normal. If Robert was right, if Emily was somehow involved in his death, I couldn't let her know I suspected anything. When I returned downstairs, I studied my daughter with new eyes. Emily had always been driven, competitive even as a child, valedictorian, top of her law school class, partner at her firm by 30. She and Marcus lived in a beautiful Tudor home in the nicest part of Portland, drove luxury cars, vacationed in Europe. They seemed to have everything. There she is. Emily beamed at me, her smile perfect, her blonde hair styled immaculately. I was about to send a search party. "Come on," Marcus made his famous tiramisu. I forced a smile and took my seat. Marcus poured me wine, asked how I was holding up, said all the right things. He was handsome, successful, charming. A thoracic surgeon who saved lives for a living. Emily had chosen well, everyone said. But Robert's words echoed in my mind. The blue tackle box. Our lake house in Cascade Bay was 2 hours away. I couldn't leave now without raising suspicion. "Actually, honey," I said carefully, "I was thinking about going to the lake house this week, before we sell it. One last Christmas there, to say goodbye properly." Emily's smile froze for just a fraction of a second. "Mom, is that really a good idea? It might be too emotional, and it's so isolated this time of year." "I think it would help me," I interrupted gently. "Your father and I spent every Christmas there for 30 years. I need closure." "I'll come with you," she said immediately. "No." I softened it with a smile. "I need to do this alone, sweetie. You understand, don't you?" Marcus touched Emily's hand. "Let your mother have her space, Em. It's part of the grieving process." Something passed between them. A look I couldn't quite read. Emily relented, but I could see the tension in her jaw. The rest of the evening crawled by. I played the grieving widow they expected, accepted condolences from their friends, admired the expensive gifts they'd exchanged, but my mind was racing, planning. At 10 p.m., I finally escaped to my car. The winter air bit at my face as I drove the familiar streets of our small coastal town. Cascade Bay, Oregon had been our home for 20 years, ever since Robert retired from his accounting firm and we'd moved from the chaos of San Francisco. We'd built a quiet life here, morning walks on the beach, Friday fish and chips at Morrison's, book club and garden club, and peaceful, ordinary days. Robert had died in April. Apple blossoms were blooming. Now it was December, and I was driving home alone to a house that still smelled like him, with questions that felt like knives in my chest. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled out photo albums, searching for clues I'd missed. Robert and Emily fishing at the lake, Robert teaching her to ride a bike, Robert walking her down the aisle 3 years ago, pride shining in his eyes. When had things changed, or had I simply been too trusting to see? At dawn, I made my decision. I threw clothes into a bag, grabbed my phone charger, and left a note on the counter for my neighbor Mrs. Chen, who sometimes checked on me. Gone to the lake house for a few days. Need some time alone. Back by New Year's. The drive to Cascade Bay took me along the coast, past rocky cliffs and crashing waves. Our lake house sat on the edge of Mirror Lake, a small vacation home we'd bought when Emily was 10. It had been our family sanctuary, summers swimming, autumns hiking, winters by the fireplace. I hadn't been back since Robert died. The gravel driveway crunched under my tires. The house looked smaller than I remembered, more weathered. I let myself in with shaking hands, and the smell of cedar and old memories washed over me. Everything was exactly as we'd left it. Robert's fishing gear by the door, my grandmother's quilt on the couch, the kitchen where we'd made countless pancake breakfasts, the blue tackle box. Robert kept it in the shed out back. I pulled on my coat and trudged through ankle-deep snow to the small storage building. Inside, among old tools and camping equipment, I found the dented blue metal box Robert had owned since before we met. I carried it inside and set it on the kitchen table. My hands were steady now, driven by a need to know the truth. Inside, beneath old fishing lures and tangled line, I found a manila envelope. My name was written on it in Robert's careful handwriting. I opened it with numb fingers. What I found made my blood run cold. First, a letter. My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, my worst fears have come true. I'm gone. And it wasn't natural causes like they'll tell you. I've been keeping records because I needed proof before I came to you. I didn't want to believe it either. 6 months ago, I discovered Emily forged my signature on a new will. She had it notarized by someone at her firm. This will leave everything to her immediately upon my death, bypassing you entirely. Our life insurance, the house, my pension, everything. I confronted her. She cried, apologized, said she'd made a mistake, that she'd been trying to help reorganize our finances and got confused. I wanted to believe her, Sarah. She's our daughter. But I changed my passwords, and I started paying attention. 3 weeks ago, I noticed my heart medication looked different. The pills were the right color, but slightly larger. I had them tested at a lab in Portland. Sarah, they're placebos. Sugar pills. Someone switched my real medication. I've been taking pictures, saving evidence. It's all in this box. I've also scheduled this email to send if I don't reset the timer every week. I set it up through a service that checks for activity. If I'm gone, you need to know. Emily has a gambling problem. I hired a private investigator. She's in debt for over $500,000 to some very dangerous people. Marcus knows. They've been fighting about it. I heard them last Thanksgiving when they thought I was outside. I wish I'd gone to the police, but I needed more proof. I'm scared I'm running out of time. My heart symptoms have been getting worse since the medication switch. I'm seeing a new doctor next week, using cash, getting a second opinion. But if something happens before then, please be careful. I don't think Emily would ever hurt you, but desperate people do desperate things. Go to the police with this evidence. Don't tell her you know. Don't give her a chance to spin another story. I love you, Sarah. I'm sorry I didn't protect us better. I'm sorry I didn't want to see who our daughter had become. Always yours, Robert. I had to read it 3 times before the words made sense. Then I went through the rest of the box's contents. Photographs of documents, bank statements showing massive withdrawals from Emily's accounts, screenshots of text messages between Emily and Marcus, arguing about the debt and buying more time. A copy of the forged will. lab results showing my husband's medication was fake, receipts from the private investigator. And at the bottom, a small SD card labeled Audio, Thanksgiving 2023. I found Robert's old laptop in the bedroom and plugged in the SD card. It took forever to load, my hands clenching and unclenching as I waited. Then their voices filled the room. Emily and Marcus, arguing in what must have been the guest room at our house. "You promised you'd stop." Marcus's voice, tight with anger. "I can't help it, okay? I have a problem." "A problem? Emily, you owe $500,000 to loan sharks. They're threatening to go to your firm. Your career will be over. That's why we need the money now. Dad's will." "Jesus Christ, you're still talking about that? Your father found out. He told you to destroy that fake will. He's not going to do anything. He won't turn in his own daughter. What if he goes to the police?" A long pause. Then Emily's voice, quieter, colder. "He won't be a problem much longer. His heart's already weak. Stress could finish the job. Emily, what did you do?" "Nothing yet. But his new prescription is sitting in my bathroom drawer. The pharmacy mixed up our orders. Isn't that convenient? I'm just holding on to it. For now." The recording ended. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. My daughter, my Emily, she'd killed her own father. For money. For gambling debts. I don't know how long I sat on that cold tile floor, sobbing into my hands. The girl I'd raised, who'd brought me dandelions and drawn crayon pictures on the walls, who'd graduated with honors and made me so proud, that girl was gone. Or maybe she'd never really existed. When I could finally breathe again, I called a number I'd never thought I'd need. "Portland Police Department, how may I direct your call? I need to report a murder." Detective Lisa Morrison arrived at the lake house by evening. She was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. She listened to the recording 3 times, reviewed every document, took copious notes. "Mrs. Henderson, I need to ask you something difficult," she said finally. "Did you notice anything unusual about your husband's death? Anything that seemed off?" I thought back to that April morning. Emily was there. She'd stopped by for breakfast. Robert collapsed about 20 minutes after she left. I was so panicked I didn't think. I stopped. Oh God. She made him coffee. She insisted on making it herself. Detective Morrison nodded grimly. "We'll need to exhume your husband's body. With this evidence, we can get a court order. If his medication was switched, there should be traces in his system or evidence of heart damage consistent with untreated disease. How long will that take?" "A few weeks. In the meantime, I need you to act completely normal." "Can you do that?" "You want me to just pretend nothing's wrong? Have Christmas dinner with my daughter who killed my husband? I know it's hard, but if Emily suspects you know, she might destroy evidence, or worse." Detective Morrison leaned forward. "Mrs. Henderson, people who kill once can kill again, especially when they're cornered. I spent the next 3 weeks in hell. I went home, I had coffee with Emily, I discussed selling the lake house. I smiled and nodded and played the grieving widow while my heart screamed the truth. Emily was solicitous, checking on me daily, bringing groceries, suggesting I see a therapist. "You seem stressed, Mom. Are you sleeping okay?" Marcus was quieter, more watchful. I caught him looking at me sometimes with something like guilt in his eyes. Then in mid-January, Detective Morrison called. "We have the autopsy results. Your husband died of a heart attack brought on by untreated hypertension and arrhythmia. His system showed no therapeutic levels of his prescribed medication. Combined with the fake pills and the evidence you provided, we have enough to arrest Emily Henderson and Marcus Chen for conspiracy to commit murder and insurance fraud." "Marcus too?" The recording makes it clear he knew what Emily was planning. Even if he didn't switch the pills himself, he didn't stop her or report it. That makes him an accessory. They arrested them both on January 18th. I insisted on being there. I'll never forget Emily's face when the officers read her rights. The shock, the disbelief. Then, when she saw me standing behind the detectives, understanding. Mom, what are you doing? This is a mistake." "I found your father's evidence," I said quietly. "I know everything." The color drained from her face. Marcus put his head in his hands. "I was going to fix it, Emily whispered. "I was going to pay everything back. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. You killed your father." My voice broke. "You switched his medication and watched him die." "It was an accident. I just wanted him stressed, wanted him to have a small episode so I could show I was taking care of things, prove I deserved the inheritance. I didn't think I didn't know." "You knew exactly what you were doing." I looked at my daughter, this stranger wearing my child's face. "Your father loved you more than anything in this world. And you murdered him for money." The trial took 6 months. Emily's lawyer argued it was negligence, not murder, that she'd had a mental breakdown, a gambling addiction that clouded her judgment. They painted her as a victim of disease, not a calculating killer. But the jury heard the recording. They saw the forged will. They learned about the $500,000 debt and the loan sharks threatening her career. They heard how she'd systematically replaced Robert's life-saving medication with sugar pills and watched him deteriorate. They saw the truth. Emily was convicted of second-degree murder and fraud. 30 years to life. Marcus got 15 years as an accessory. Their appeals were denied. I haven't spoken to my daughter since the day of her arrest. She's tried to call from prison. She's written letters. I burn them without reading them. Some people can't understand that. They tell me she's still my daughter, that forgiveness is healing, that I should visit her. But they didn't love Robert the way I did. They didn't hear their daughter plan his death. They didn't spend 30 years building a life, only to watch it destroyed by greed. I sold both houses, ours and the lake house. Too many ghosts. I moved to a small apartment in Portland and started over at 59 years old. That's when I discovered something unexpected. I wasn't the only one. Through the trial, I met other families destroyed by inheritance greed, adult children who'd scammed elderly parents, siblings who'd murdered each other over houses and bank accounts. But the stories were everywhere once I started looking. So I started a foundation in Robert's name. We provide free legal services to elderly people who suspect financial abuse from family members. We help them protect their assets, document suspicious behavior, and get help before it's too late. We've saved 6 lives in the past year that we know of, prevented 3 planned murders, stopped a dozen fraud cases, helped families get intervention before tragedy struck. Robert would have liked that. He was always about helping people, protecting the vulnerable. He spent his whole career as an accountant, making sure people's finances were in order, their futures secure. Now I'm doing the same, but with an urgency born from experience. Every parent I help, every life we save, feels like keeping Robert's memory alive in a way that matters. Is it healing? I don't know. Some mornings I still wake up reaching for him, forgetting he's gone. Some nights I dream about Emily as a little girl, and I wake up crying. But I've learned something important. Grief and purpose can coexist. The hole in my heart where Robert used to be hasn't healed, and maybe it never will. But I can fill my days with meaning anyway. I can use my pain to protect others from the same fate. Last week, a woman came to our office. Her son had been pressuring her to sign over her house, change her will, give him power of attorney. She was scared but didn't know what to do. We helped her set up legal protections, documented his harassment, connected her with a therapist specializing in family abuse. 2 days ago, she called to thank me. Her son had backed off once he realized she'd taken legal precautions. One more tragedy prevented. One more Robert avenged. People ask me how I'm so strong. They see the foundation, the work I do, the composed woman in the news articles about elder abuse prevention. They don't see me at night, alone in my apartment, looking at old photographs and wondering where I went wrong as a mother. Did I spoil Emily? Give her too much? Not teach her the value of money, the importance of integrity, the sacred bond between parent and child? Was there a moment I missed? A warning sign I ignored? A conversation I should have had? I'll never know. And I've learned that maybe it doesn't matter. Emily made her choices. She chose gambling over family. She chose money over her father's life. Those were her decisions, not mine. My decision now is how I move forward. I choose to honor Robert's memory by protecting others. I choose to turn my tragedy into purpose. I choose to believe that even when your own child betrays you, when the world feels cruel and senseless, there's still good to be done. Robert left me that email because he trusted me to be strong enough to handle the truth. to seek justice, to not let him die in vain. I hope I've made him proud. Every year on Christmas Eve, at 7:47 p.m., I light a candle and read his final letter. I remember the man who loved me for 40 years, who protected me even from beyond the grave, who trusted me to finish what he started. And then I blow out the candle, close the letter, and keep going. Because that's what you do when your world ends. You don't stay in the ashes. You build something new. Not for yourself, not anymore, but for everyone else who might be standing where you once stood, reading a message that changes everything, wondering if they're strong enough to face the truth. They are. We all are. We just need someone to light the way.